Welcome to episode 86 of the Loane Hockey Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about yesterday's matchup between Anaheim and Los Angeles, preseason matchup. And luckily, the regular season is starting pretty soon, but we're going to be talking about some standouts from that game. And LA's actually had a pretty good preseason thus far. They've had some players inside their top nine for a group that really stood out. Unfortunately, they have Drew Doughty, who's out on IR now, but at the same time, a lot of the forwards have stood out, and this gives good opportunity for younger guys like Jordan Spence and Brandon Clark to be able to step up even further and take their games to another level in the NHL. So we'll start with Anaheim, and with Anaheim, they have a lot of bigger skill type players, and Pat Verbeek essentially fit that role when he was playing in his own career. So it makes sense as to why a lot of these players are in Anaheim and why they like to have that certain style of player. And so yesterday, I thought going off that trend, Sam Colangelo is one of the bigger standouts in terms of the forward group, in terms of his raw skill, raw ability. And I noticed his off puck play a lot in terms of how he's positioning himself inside the offensive zone to be inside really good small area sequences so that way he could be a puck support option for his teammates and find space for his teammates and be able to be a threat when necessary in scoring areas and viable scoring areas. And Colangelo's always been more of a fluid off puck player, and he's had that since his junior days playing in Chicago in the USHL, and then going up the ranks and then being able to play in college with Northeastern, and then I believe his grad season with Western Michigan. And so with Colangelo, it really stands out as that off puck patterning, the ability to utilize that inside the offensive zone. And what I really like about his raw skill with the puck is his puck protection and using his size. He's a bigger player, a bigger power winger. So controlling the walls, controlling perimeter of the ice, and being able to control possession there becomes more important for wingers, especially big wingers. And so with Colangelo, he does a really good job of that. On the back end, I thought Brian Dumoulin was one of their better players for Anaheim, and he really stood out in his puck movement, his ozone lateral playmaking, and his ability to activate off the puck. And sometimes he would do a really good job of when he'd make a pass, immediately he'd move off the pass. And part of it, he's been around the league for a very long time now. So he understands the league, he understands movement patterns better, he understands a lot of different situations better. And it's much easier for him to process situations. So Dumoulin was a good two-way defender. He stands out on both sides of the puck. He's not super flashy per se, but he's going to bring value in terms of his defensive play, shutdown play, his ability to mitigate line rush scenarios. Brett Leeson was not bad, similar to Colangelo though, except he's not more reliant on his off puck play. He's more of a checker. He's not a super skilled player. He has checking ability. He has some scoring ability, but not a ton. He was a big scorer in junior, playing in the WHL, but not a huge scorer in the NHL. He's going to be more of a bottom six guy for them heading into the season, but still stood out, showed some good ability. It's similar to Brock McGinn, who played this game as well. And in terms of some other players, there weren't a ton on Anaheim's side that stood out because they lost 4-0 and they got shut out, and it wasn't their best game. I thought Olin Zellweger, though, looked really good. I'm really excited about him. He's so fun to watch. Undersized defenseman, but plays like what's a really good example? He plays similarly in a sense to Sam Girard. He just doesn't have the checking and physical ability that Girard has. Girard is, I believe, around 5'10", and he's a very physical defenseman. Zellweger's not as physical. He doesn't use hand fighting as much. He doesn't use aggressiveness with his hands as much compared to other defensemen. He likes to rely more on positioning angles and his focus to be able to shut plays down and forward skating and those type of modern elements that you see in typical modern day defensemen. And then his ozone ability, what I really like about him, he's not afraid to activate below the top of the faceoff circle and even play deep in the offensive zone, which is really unique. And he's been relied upon in junior teams to be able to play that style. He's playing in Everett and then Kamloops. So two styles, systematically speaking, where he was able to leverage his offensive ability and leverage his play deep inside the zone. So some of those habits are still ingrained in his game. And in terms of his ability now, he still showcases a lot of lateral playmaking. He's very deceptive in his feet specifically. He likes to use a lot of mohawk pivots and throw defenders off using manipulation with his feet to create space and create separation. And really big standout. He's so fun to watch. He's so fluid, and he doesn't play like he's undersized at all. He plays like he's much bigger than he is, and very competitive at that size as well. And I really like his stick work and the detail he has in his stick. Those are two things I really like in terms of his footwork mainly, because I notice his feet so much and they're always moving. And then at the same time, I notice his stick work a lot and his detail. He's not going to be flailing his stick all over the place trying to make a play. He's going to position himself and position his stick in the right area so he can shut plays down when necessary and be able to not allow players to enter the middle of the ice so easily. So a few standouts from Anaheim side. So with LA, he stood out all preseason. This Tanner Jeannot after getting traded from Tampa Bay to here. Tanner Jeannot's been a really good player. He's been a really good complementary player for their top nine. Specifically in their preseason, he's been playing mostly inside their top six. 2 points in this game. He had a shot on goal, which was the goal. And so, but he plays hard as a checker, tenacious as a checker. And ever since he started his career and he really blossomed in Nashville, going down to Tampa, and now here, his checking game is really what you're going to get the most out of, and you're going to get above average skill along with that. Now, LA is hoping that they can get, say, a player who could produce as well, 50, 60-ish points potentially for him. They're very well hoping that they can get that type of player because they know he has a checking game, a really good checking game, but can he add to his offensive skill? And that's the really big question surrounding him. But he has a lot of skill. It's just more a matter of how he's able to use it and how much ice time he's given to be able to use it. So Jeannot was really good. Akil Thomas and Quentin Byfield were both really good. They both scored one goal each. Quentin Byfield looks really good. He's moving really well. He's moving with pace, moving with speed, and he looks like he could really be in for a big second season, or not big second season, big. I don't know what season it is, but last year was his breakout season. That's what I meant. And he could be in for another really, really big season this year. So Byfield, obviously, he played really well last year, but at the same time, he continued to make strides in so many different areas with his footwork, his ability to change the angle on his shots, his ability to draw defenders to him and make plays. He was doing a lot of different elements that really stood out in his time in Sudbury in the OHL, and now translating that to the NHL has been a really key component for his success thus far. Philip Deneau is really good. Kevin Fiala, a lot of those top guys are going to naturally stand out, but I wanted to talk about him because I like watching him, and he's really similar to Zellweger in a sense, but I like his offensive ability and I like his lateral playmaking in the ozone a little bit more because he's already gotten some reps and sustained reps in the NHL. It's Jordan Spence, and I really like Jordan Spence's game. His game is so good offensively. He's calm, he's poised, he makes sound decisions, but he makes effective decisions. So that's a big component to his game is the decision making element. That's what really stands out to me the most. And the consistency at which he makes decisions, not only in D zone situations, but in transition offense scenarios and also on entry scenarios and then inside the offensive zone. And Spence is a player that really stands out offensively in terms of his decision making and his playmaking elements. I really like him. He had an assist yesterday, two shots, and he's a really effective player in terms of his on puck ability and how he generates offense. And he's going to be a player that is going to be potentially a big component to the top four in LA this year. And another one was Samuel Hellenius was good, and then Mikey Anderson. And Mikey Anderson I really like because he plays a very calm shutdown game, a very poised shutdown game, but he makes really steady decisions as a defensive defenseman. And as a player defending the line, he relies a lot on his stick, his body orientation, his ability to close gaps and be able to understand timing on those sequences. So he's really effective. And then one more is outside Alex Turcotte because he stood out all preseasons. Andre Lee and Andre Lee, I can totally see this guy becoming a player who fills a bottom six checking role as soon as the season with LA. Not consistently, but inconsistently. I could totally see it getting to a point where he gets some call ups and he's able to play in LA from time to time, depending on injury situations and scratches and stuff like that. But certainly a player that has skill and raw skill, but also dual threat ability. So that's what you need out of bottom six checking forwards nowadays. Is you need them to check first and foremost, but you also need them to have skill because a lot of these bottom sixers nowadays they have some degree of skill. it's not like if you could be a bottom sixer 10, 15 years ago and you don't have dual threat ability, you could just hit all the time. But now it's changed a little bit where if you're in that role, you have to have a little bit of offense. You don't have to have a ton, but as long as you have some, that's a really good sign. And Andre Lee has that. He's a big winger, I believe around 6'4", 6'5". He's played in Ontario. He played coming up the ranks in the USHL, and then college, and then pro, minor pro right now with the Ontario Reign. And what really stands out to me in terms of Lee's game is, like I said, he has that checking ability, but also that dual threat ability. So he can score, but he can also make plays. His shots are really big threat, a really major threat when he can use it because 6'5" winger, and then the weight transfer he's able to get on his shots because he has a lot of strength in his legs. To be able to get those shots off with velocity and pure power is really, really interesting to watch. So Andre Lee, he's going to be an interesting player to evaluate coming into the season and going throughout the season because, like I said, I believe he could be a player that could play some games in LA and maybe not consistently yet, but as long as he's able to have a good year in Ontario or start the season really well in Ontario, he could certainly get some call ups and play consistently with the NHL team.